There we go. Fix that. There we go. Much better. All right. Good old Abaddon the Despoiler. So we're going to be playing with this model today. So I'm going to be working right now right in this boot right here. His boots, his greaves. I'm going to start laying down colors, deciding which colors I want to use and everything else like that. Right now I'm going to use some Balthazar. Start blocking out some of this filigree that he's got. Wish I had some sticky tack, but I ran out of it. I have to go pick some more up. I like this handle, but it's a little too much for this guy. The giant wings are kind of getting in my way. Now, I don't plan on leaving this just Balthazar. I'm just using it kind of a base coat right now. Probably going to come in with some brass scorpion, just give it a little bit more brightness, a little bit more warmth. And you got the fun part right here. I'm going to have to shoot under. His little loincloth he's got going on. That nice rich color starting to build up there. So we'll give that a second to dry, and then I'm going to hit that with a Argrax wash, and then I'm going to start coming in with that brass scorpion and start building out the actual highlights. It seems a little dark on this side, doesn't it? All right. I'm going to apply some Argrax now. This will help define all of those shapes, as well as bringing some more brown into the actual color. Good old spam. You can never get away from it. So right now I'm just pushing a little bit of the excess around so it lays more where I want it to lay. And then while that's drying, I'm going to start building out my actual black on that. So for that, I'm going to start with some good old-fashioned GW Dark Reaper, which I already put on my palette. I grab my 00 brush here. Now I'm going to start dialing in the shapes. Basically, I'm going to start tracing everything. It's going to be really faint. This just helps with the transition to the brighter colors I'm going to use here in a minute. And just to show you what I'm planning on doing, I'm just going to start with that side of the model. You can see it kind of faintly already, but as I go through this process and build it up, it's going to get more and more noticeable. So for my next color, I'm going to be using some Thunderhawk Blue, which is kind of like a grayish blue. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to do it in a tighter spot. So basically I'm just layering, and now I'm going to be first sketching. Doing a little too thin for my liking. A little too much water. Try not to hit the rim of the filigree. As you can see, it's like that glow starting to build up. But we're going to take it even a notch farther. Now I'm going to go to the next step of that, which is Phoenician Gray. So this is basically still a blue-gray, but it's a lot higher. Reminds me more of like a cold gray sky kind of blue. Now we're going to get starting to get real faint with this. That's how you start getting that nice glow built out. Looks like, see, I nicked it right there. It's fine. Not that big a deal. Just go grab some Balthazar here quick. We'll trim that back down. And I'll grab a little bit of Abaddon and then remake that seam. However, there's a big gap right here between the highlights and the filigree. So we're going to go ahead and close that up. So I'm going to go in here with some Dark Reaper. And I'm just going to basically work my way back up the colors here quick. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. All right, so now that I got that trimmed back out, now I'm just going to pop in here quick with a little bit more Abaddon Black just to kind of help fix the shape, the size of it, the shape of it. I want it to be a little bit more on point with the shape. And that Balthazar looks like it's just about dry enough for me to start working on. So we can actually start seeing what this brass scorpion is going to look like on top of this Balthazar gold. So I'm only doing a small spot of it right now because he's got a lot of it on him. I want to make sure it's what I want first before I go, all out on the rest of his armor. So when I apply this, I'm going to try to leave some of that Balthazar and that dark in there. So I'm going to go in more of like an edge highlight, I think. I'll start right here. I'm going to start kind of like with a scratching motion, because I don't want to lose all that darkness. That's part of the armor. He's got some deep, dark bronzes. Oh my god, I can't talk today. Deep bronze-like armor. Trying to get used to my new stream setup here too. I've had to move my desk multiple times in the last couple months, so it's like every time I have to like reposition myself and get used to where my camera's at. All right, so that definitely give it some richness there. Let's see what else we have for colors that we can actually help bring that up even more. We can flop back over to some Rune Lord Brass. This should kind of pale it out in a sense. It's a brass color, but it's got a little bit more of like a silver tone to it mixed in with it. Of course, you know, it's not a paint that I use a lot of, so it's kind of settled. There we go. All right, so let's see if we can get this on this part. See what it looks like, how it behaves. See if this is something that we want to do for the rest of the model or not. So I believe, if I am correct, because this is not usually a recipe I'm using, I'm kind of just freewheeling here. This should give it a lot more of a beat up look, which is kind of what we want, because I mean his armor has been through hell and back, like literally. So I think it'd give it a little bit more accent to it, gives it a little bit more flavor. Oh yeah, I think I'm digging this. Let's pop it up here in the actual face and see what it does with actual larger shapes. Yeah, I think I'm gonna like this when it's done. So I think the last thing I'm gonna do is finish off that high gloss with maybe, we'll give some Rune Fang Steel. So I'll try and see what that does. Again, another paint that I don't use a lot of. I usually go for like Storm Host Silver. All right, let's try to get this on the palette again. There we go. Got some real color that time. Now this might be too bright. I'm not sure. But that's also a part of painting is kind of experimentation. So I'm going to do this very carefully and only in select spots to see what it's going to look like first. So the first spot I'm going to go for is the little chips that he's got here and there. Around some of these corners. Tips of these little horns he's got coming out. Catch a little bit of these star patterns he has. Just to give it a little extra flavor. Oh, Macho Man Yi. I hope I said that right. I'm still new to painting. I really enjoy airbrushing the armor of my Space Wolves. Kudos to that. I love Space Wolves. But often have only air and no paint come out. Never have consistent spray. Okay. So with that, you have a couple things going on. So the first thing you're going to want to check is obviously make sure that your air pressure is correct for your airbrush. Most of the time, airbrushes like to stay around 25 psi. The other thing is are you mixing anything into the paints? Like, are you using GW paints? Are you using like the airbrush version of their paints or anything else like that? Because you might just have to get some like flow improver or thinner in there as well and mix it up, and that should help resolve that issue. So just give me a holler here and let me know if you got any of that stuff, or we'll go from there. Big nice chip in his armor. Yeah. See, now I'm getting that nice glare. Even my camera is like reading it as extremely shiny, but then at the same time it reads as deep. So I think that'll play really nice once we get the whole greave painted up. Excuse me, I'm just getting over a cold. All right. So while we wait for that, let's get his foot caught up here. So I'm going to go back to that original black recipe that I'm going to use. So it's going to be Dark Reaper here. And I'm just trying to paint around all of the shapes. This is kind of a classic thing that Games Workshop likes to do with their models. The heavy metal style, if you'd call it. But that's why you see a lot of it on the box art and everything else. So it looks like he's got a shaped, like a crease on the top of his foot. So we're going to go ahead and get that in there. I'm going to go ahead and then just kind of do an edge highlight on the top of the foot back there. Obviously, we don't have to go too deep in there. I just want to make sure that edge is caught. Because your big focal point is going to be like right here towards the toe. Like even for a light standpoint, just because that's what's sticking out farther. It's really hard to see right now, but that's to be anticipated. That's literally just the first wave of the highlight. That's just kind of helped build it out. A lot of people call that their fat highlight. It just helps your eye read it more as a transition instead of a line. Do a little bit more brighter on one side than the other in the back there, just because obviously light's not getting too much into one side or the other. Coming up to that Venetian. Now this, I'm going to start trying to do this as thin as possible. And this is representing the, the actual brightest part of the glare that you would see off an armor, a shiny armor panel. It's like we're going to use it there. Grab just a little bit here in the front. Just to kind of help sell that look, kind of shape the foot. Oh, Macho Man Yee's back. GW paints and thin them with water. Try and do a 50-50 mix. Recently picked up an airbrush specific GW base. I'm excited to try. Okay, I'm going to tell you this as well. The GW paint, obviously, the airbrush version is going to help a little bit. They're still thick to begin with. I've used a few of them in the past. Yes, they are thinner, but most airbrushes still struggle actually pushing them through. And GW paints dry extremely fast. So when I mix up my GW paints in my airbrush, I don't use water normally through an airbrush because it doesn't help really dilute the paint that I want it to do. And actually, water increases the drying time. I'm sorry, decreases the drying time. So water will actually give you something called dry tip. What dry tip is basically when the paint dries to the very tip of your needle, and then once it does that to enough points, it'll stop, it'll stop having paint flow through it until you go in there and clean it off. So, for example, most of the time what I use for mixing up paints in for GW is I just use some good old airbrush flow improver. So I'll use a couple drops of this with a couple drops of paint, and I usually have no problems. I can use that all day, every day, not an issue. It works just fine with GW paints. Not to mention, I've also used it obviously with Vallejo. It works great for that. It actually works with Monument Hobby Pro acrylics as well. So if you're really having that much trouble, I would probably just pick up one of these bottles. Because I mean, this one bottle will last you probably, at least a year. I mean, this one here, where I paint all day, every day, this will last me 6-7 months because you're not using very much of it at a time. All right. So we got that first glare on the side there. We're kind of just picking our spots. I'm going to go in here and actually start getting the rest of that gold flavor on the rest of like this face here. The rest of the star pattern. That way we can start shaping it out. Now I'm going to be a little bit more light on my highlights on this black side of this panel just because there's no light on this side. It's in a shadow. It's under him. So we want a little bit there just to help define everything, but we don't need to go all out bringing it out. All right, so let me grab a brush that I do not have that much love for. It's kind of my beat it brush. You do not want to use your good sable hair brushes on metallics because it'll actually eat the hair. Because it's got little metallic plates in it. So it's like little shrapnel that will eventually kill whatever brush you use. So if you have expensive brushes, I suggest not using metallics with them. Not unless you don't like that brush. All right, so now that I'm starting to get towards the dark end here, I'm going to kind of start being a little bit more picky where I'm going to put my brighter colors. But as far as this nose, I'm going to call it a nose. I mean, obviously it's like a demon face. Looks like it's got nostrils, so I'm going to take it as that. Feather in that's rune brass. Anytime. Hopefully that helps. If you have any other issues, just let me know. One fun thing about streaming models is like I have to be careful where I put my head at the moment because if I move too far to the left with my head, you ain't gonna see nothing. Because a lot of times, like when I'm painting, I like to turn into like an armadillo around the thing. I swear, got to see everything. All right, let's go back to that storm. No, is this Runefang? Yep, Runefang Steel. Now I'm going to start shaping some of the high points in the face. Very cautiously, though. I do not need a lot of this, and if I use too much of it, then it will no longer read the color I want. I just want it to basically accent, give it the appearance of extreme light hitting it, but I don't want to lose my color either. That is one thing I actually am not too big a fan of when it comes to the heavy metal style sometimes, is they literally panel line everything. When I mean panel line, I mean edge highlight. So they trace everything out and every little nook of detail. It doesn't matter if it's in a shadow or not, which, I mean, it doesn't look bad, but that's not how that would normally work. Like, I prefer giving it more detail where the light's going to hit, because, I mean, obviously it's in the light. Uh-oh, being robbed. All right, so on this side, I'm going to start tracing out in that Dark Reaper again around all the star pattern. Come get this side because I haven't touched it yet. Now it's not going to bother me too much if I get it right into the recess because I can go back in there and clean that up. It's a great thing about painting thin is you can easily come back and clean up mistakes if you make them. I feel like it's really dark on this side of the screen. Maybe I should hire a minion to hold the light over there. All right, as you can see, that's a little too fat for highlights. That's fine. We're going to get that cleaned up here in just a second. I just want to get the last of the actual highlight in place. All right, grab a little bit of Abaddon to put on Abaddon. Oh, hey Alex, how you been?
I don't have an answer for that.
Well, I guess the robot in the house wanted to say hi as well. Good old Devin. Slamming doors. All right, so we got that nice fade going on with that one. Let's see here. What do we want to tackle next? Start working up the way of the leg. Looks like we got some silver to knock out there in a second. So let's see if we can throw some silver on this guy, start popping out some other designs. So I know this is going to be silver. And we got this chain right here. And then it looked like these like little piston, what are they, piston cylinders, whatever he's got in his armor are silver as well. So we're going to get those in there as quick. Cold and sleepy. Makes you feel any better. My furnace is out in my house. It's a good thing I got a fireplace while I wait for him to fix it. So I'm used to painting it like straight down like this, so probably gonna have to move this camera again. We'll get it figured out. All right, so we got that on there. I'm gonna go ahead and start just knocking out some colors here quick. Got more filigree up here. Then we got these spikes, which I think I'm gonna do in silver. What's the point of having spikes if they don't pop out? And that's a chip. Okay. Get our brass scorpion. Anybody else in the Midwest freezing their ass off? All right. Start bringing this side plate out. Sorry, I was waiting on the heater to calm down. It got kind of loud there for a second. I mean, I'd say I feel bad for you for living in Canada, but I don't. I mean, it's a cold place. Got some nice perks up there, though. Here and start knocking out some of the rest of these shapes. Thank God. She stopped. Blocking in some Dark Reaper here. Start trying to get that leg to pop out. This is when the painter in me starts coming out. I'm like, okay, I could just do this all heavy metal style. Be boom, damn, done. No. That's not good enough for me. Just start adding my own flair to it now. So basically what I'm doing right now is I'm starting to sketch. Sketching out this light band that is going to be on his leg armor here. And when you sketch, it always looks uglier than it's going to be when you're done. It's all part of the process. You really can't judge something until you're done with it. But see, once that dries, it's going to add a little bit more flair into there. I'm probably going to do the same thing with the side, just because, you know, you got all of that open panel area. You might as well do something with it, give it a little bit more definition. And like the same thing with all of these nooks and crannies. So I'm just going to come in here with the Dark Reaper, start picking out spots, kind of tracing along the edges. It's kind of a little tight area to work in, but you know, hey, is what it is. See, as I add more colors in there, it starts giving a lot more definition, a lot more shape. But with black armor, it's really easy to also overdo it. If you go too far into your grays, anything like that, and then it doesn't read like black anymore. It starts reading as blue or gray or whatever color you're using. So you have to make sure that you do it in such a way that your highlights don't overpower anything as well. And that's the balance point. That is the fun. It's subtle placing is all it is. So like just a little spot here and there goes a long way. Where like other colors like reds, greens, you have a lot more working room. Like that just helped brought that leg out so much more right there. I kind of want to do that the same thing with this plate up here. It's like, yes, that edge right there is very nice, but at the same time, it's just then subtle black, which just doesn't work for me. Let's see if we can add like a light band or something in there, some type of shape that helps accent it a little bit more, make it not so dull. So it curves like a cylinder going this way, so add it right about here, I think. I'm just going to start tracing in a light band.
For the Emperor.
Thank you, Nixie. I appreciate it. All right. So for this next part, I'm going to take a little bit of that Phoenician that we've been working with, mix it with some Thunderhawk. Because I just want to tone that down a little bit more. I don't want such an aggressive change quite yet. Once I got my actual shapes in here, we can start blending this all out. Making it feel a little bit more organic, not so much splattered. Yeah, it's about the right spot. All right, now that we got basically our base in there with that, now I'm going to start actually feathering it together. So now I'm going to take the same paints I've been working with, but now I'm going to start working in a lot thinner consistencies. So right here is some black, Abaddon black. Just slightly feathering it in there, but it's like almost a glaze. So when it dries, it's still going to allow some of that color to show through. But it's going to start getting rid of such a stark change in color. The more and more I play with this, the more and more it's going to start blending out with each other. But just that right there kind of gave it a lot more detail in that leg. Instead of it's just, instead of being a black spot, black armor, flat black, which it doesn't, doesn't look bad, but not as much detail. It doesn't catch the eye as much. But of course, I lost my silver in there. All right, we'll go ahead and fix that quick. There's that silver pop. Let's get some Argrax onto that top of the filigree so that way it has time to dry. But we have that nice deep brass to start working with here in a second. Now we're going to do something cool with when it comes to this 8-pointed star. I'm going to add some glowing effects around it and build it out. They do have that on the box art, but it's kind of subdued. I'm going to go a little bit more intense with it. I mean, it is Abaddon. He should have some type of warp energy going with him. The other thing is, I noticed, like with the box art, I mean, they have his front tabard is like an off style black. I get that, but I feel like it'd just give it a lot more flavor if it was a red. That might just be my personal opinion. But let's start with that. So if I'm going to start working on that belt, then I need to start getting my colors ready for that. So let me grab my good old squiddy airbrush here quick, and let's see here. Thinking about red because it is box art in the red, so I do kind of want to stay in that same approach. But actually, I think I'm gonna go with my Monument Hobbies red for it. So I'm gonna start with some burnt red, and then some bold pyrrole red. Another question I'm having a lot of trouble painting the yellow shoulder pads of my Space Wolves. Yellow just doesn't cover that well, and any tips or tricks to ease that process? Yellow is a very difficult color to work with. The two most difficult colors to work with is yellow and white, or yellow and white, especially when hand painting. So if you can get away with airbrushing them, I would, just because for speed, just works a lot better. But if you have to hand paint them, or even when you're airbrushing them for that matter, always look at what your undercoat is. So the color that's going to be under it, because it's going to affect it the most. So for like yellow, you can use like a lighter brown or tan, and that will actually play so much better with the yellow because it's already halfway there. Like if you're spraying yellow on black, it's going to take so much yellow to cover it, and it's still going to have a dull color to it because of that black undercoat. Same with white. It's going to be very pale with that yellow. But if you give it a nice rich base coat to start with, like a brown, like a lighter brown tan somewhere, like XV88 or anything else like that, it's going to come out a lot richer. But the other thing is when you're hand painting yellow, I'm sure you've heard this from a bunch of other people before, is many thin coats. And make sure you give ample time between each coat. And to avoid brush strokes, brush, if you're right-handed, you're going to brush right to left. If you're left-handed, you're going to brush left to right. So that way you can kind of push the excess along. And thin it a little bit more than you normally would with any other paint. Because yellow is highly and white's highly pigmented, you need to add more water to it or flow improver, whatever you're going to use, to make it thinner than you normally would with any other paint. Thanks for joining my TED Talk. All right. So this bold power red, it's going to be our base coat for that. I'm about to do here. So I just need one drop. Get that mixed up into my airbrush. I do a little bit of a back blow action, so I'm just going to cover it. Let's just mix it any other fluids I couldn't reach. All right. Send it out a little bit more than I planned to. Just to give that nice base coat of red there. This will let my next brighter color of red sit a lot nicer. Grab my airbrush pot. Oh, I'm sorry, Brian, I didn't see yours. Is this epic? This will be epic when I'm done with it. This is going to be a long haul. I actually, with this model, plan on doing streams maybe once a week for this model. And then at the end of the month, I actually plan on to either raffle away or give it away to somebody in my Patreon. Haven't quite figured out which one I want to do with that yet. All right, let's get that bold pile of red in there. So like I was talking about earlier, a little bit of flow improver. Couple drops. So that was about 3 drops. Mind grabbing that, Devin?
Yeah. You throwing shit.
Drop 2, because I come with this kind of thin. Mix it all up. And I'm using a color shaper for this inside my airbrush just because it's got like that silicone tip and I don't want to damage my airbrushes. I don't like scratching them up because that wears away the coating on them. A little back pressure. Alright, so we're going to come in here and do the exact same thing we did before. I'm just going to feather it in, focusing more towards the middle of that eye. Start building it out a little bit even more. And then on top of that, do I really want to go a step? Do I want to go a step further, Devin? Do I want to bring some orange into that red?
We always go a step further.
You're not wrong. All right, so
Especially it's Abaddon. He deserves it.
I mean, he deserves something. I don't know if it's that. So I'm gonna take some Troll Slayer. I'm gonna just drop it in there just to give it a little bit more of a brighter orange. I'm sorry, brighter red. Adds a little bit more heat to it, in a sense. Just like a fire. Oh, is that the double D red? What's up, buddy? How'd you know? It's like you pop in here every time. Doesn't matter. It could be years, months, days. You always pop in when I'm playing with red. That's about as bright as I want that to go, because the rest is going to be hand painted anyways. And I want to save some work room for the actual eye. Everyone does apparently like playing with red. I may have used too much color. And no, that is not orange juice. Airbrush juice, but not orange juice. All right. So we got that starter red on there. So now we need to come out and start blocking out the colors for the rest of that belt, which looks like gold, bronze, whatever color you want to call that. For the stars, probably the trim around it. Looks like we got a nice start for the eye anyways. So we'll just start with that. So I'm going to go back to my Balthazar gold. I'm going to start tracing out that star. Sounds like there is 2 dogs fighting outside. Promise you they're not mine. My dogs are too lazy to fight. They prefer the couch with a cookie. And it does not have to be in that order. Oh, yeah? Somebody capture you too, huh? That's the real owner of Mini Freak Studios right there. Whoever controls the ring. All right, now that we got that first layer of gold on there, we're just going to go straight into some brass scorpion. All right. Now we got to do the same thing that we did with the rest of the gold bronze color. We need to get that Argrax in there to get that richness. Oh, makes sense. We get the cheap end of the deal is the way I look at it. Our rings don't cost thousands of dollars normally. Make sure that's fully closed and put away. Too many accidents with the pots of paint from GW. Especially washes. Just one hit. Boop. Done. There goes $10. And the pair of pants. And the shirt. And anything that happened to be in a 5-mile radius. That's right. 5-mile radius. They explode. All right.
For the Emperor.
Appreciate it, Matt. Let's get some of that brass rune lord in there. Might as well grab the corners over here while I'm at it. How much would I charge for a commission for 2 models? That really depends on 2 things. What the models are, and how far you want me to go with them. We have 4 different brackets. So we have tabletop. So basically good enough to get you on the table, but yet nice and clean looking. Which tends to be pretty good for most people, you know, especially for your armies. You have Tabletop Plus, which is basically the same thing as Tabletop, but it's better, a little bit more highlights, stuff like that. So just a little bit over the top for the Tabletop. Then you have the 2 levels that I personally work on, which is Elite and Epic. Elite and Epic is where I start going and doing stuff like I'm doing right now. Where I'm going in, I do shading, highlighting, you know, some freehand stuff of that nature. So really depends on how far you want to go. So I would start with what 2 models they are. That way I can kind of already know what category to put them in for, you know, size and everything else like that. And then we can decide how far, you know, how detailed you want me to get with them. Hi, Avria. See? Told you, whoever controls the ring controls the studio. She's been summoned. So while I'm at it, I'm going to start getting that slit put in for the eye. Gonna have to reshape that, but I already knew that. Got away from me for a second. That's fine, because I wanted to work some more oranges and stuff into that eye to bring it out. Put them in the general on discard. All right, when I'm done with the stream today, I'll go ahead and look at those models, and then well, we can go ahead and talk about it. All right, so I'm going to take some orange here. I'm going to mix it with some bold pyro red. Just to give me a nice foundation, because I got to reshape that eye. I want it to be a little bit more like a cat eye, where it's a sliver but fatter towards the middle. But I also want it to be brighter right on the outside of it. Oh, really? Now, are they like models or like little busts or something like that? Red. Okay, sweet. So, I know you put them in there. Did you send like pictures, or you could like put it next to a marine, or like I think what you had Imperial Guard or something like that. Put a model next to it. That'll just help me, size it up. Oh, okay. I take it. So they're probably what 3D printed, red. Got it. Got it. Yeah, just let me know, buddy. I'll make sure you get taken care of. All right, that's fine, red. So what time is it? 6. Okay. So what I'm about to do is I am going to have to wrap up for Abaddon today, but we will be continuing him tomorrow. I'm going to give it about an hour, and I'll be back for another stream, but then we're going to be focusing on another epic mini for our clients, and that's going to be Lionel Johnson. So if you would like to hang out, I'll see you here in a little bit. If not, I will see you tomorrow. Until then, guys, I'll see you then.